Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry for uploading this video a little bit late. Had some issues going on, and I think I'm going to have some issues tomorrow as well, so my uploading schedule is a little bit out of whack. But I did decide to finally talk about European politics. Believe it or not, one of the main reasons I talk about US politics is because in Romanian news, the articles are filled with what's going on in the US. Someone takes a fart in the United States and everyone talks about it here in Europe. But when you have massive protests in France for the last year, some of them quite violent and brutal, almost no one talks about them. I find that kind of fascinating. I really can't tell why that is. Maybe it's just like the new normal in France, and people just go like, oh yeah, like the French are on the streets again. Like, who cares? Oh, they're burning down Paris. Oh, that's very nice. Let's talk about America. That's the vibe that I'm getting. Now, with the yellow vests, I kind of get it because as they go on for a couple of months, eventually, like the mainstream media decides to go silent on it. And there were a couple of meme-worthy moments that took place. Like there was this lady which owned a newspaper, and she's on national television in France. And she's like, oh, well, the yellow vest protests have died down. Oh, yeah, I mean, they're just a couple of disorganized people on the streets right now, but nothing big. And then the guy from the television goes like this just in and shows the lady pictures of her newspaper on fire as people were setting fire to it. And she's like looking at it and it was meme worthy. I don't think I have the recording, but if you're from France, just give it to me because I could show it on a live stream. But the idea was that the protesters were getting infuriated that the mainstream media wouldn't cover them. This shows the power that the mainstream media has. If it's a protest that they like, and it's only like a couple of dozen people that are protesting, like they will make sure to get the shot in such a way that the protest looks massive. And they talk about it nonstop on every channel in order to make it seem like it's a big deal. But if it's a protest they don't like, then either they will try to go amongst the protesters and find the guy suffering from leukemia to make him look like a skinhead, and that's the guy they interview. They cherry pick like the most crazy people out of those thousands of protesters, and they show it to the public. And another tactic that they do is if they see that the protests are not letting up, they just stop covering it. So eventually, like, people realize, well, we're on the streets here, we're getting beaten by cops, but no one is covering it. So that's probably what happened in France, in my opinion. Now, the recent 3 weeks of protests aren't really tied to the yellow vests, although there might be a couple of connections here and there where the cops did abuse their powers, like in this video.
Oh, monsieur, oh!
Ah, monsieur, right? So the problem is that this looks very bad. It tarnishes the name of the police, and as such, the French government decided to issue a law which bans recording the police. Right? That's how the news media presents it, but in reality, the government says it's only going to ban ill-intentioned videos. Right? So it would be up to a judge to decide if a video is done with ill intention and malice, or if it's legitimately done in order to like film abuses or whatnot. But obviously you can see why that would be a problem, because if you see an abuse by a police officer, well, do you film it or not? I mean, you can be in that gray area where you don't know if you're doing some illegal activity or not. Obviously people went to protest. Now I have something to say about this, and it's going to be very controversial. And I know like my own subscribers are not going to like what I'm going to have to say here. But I do see the point of the French government. However, I disagree their way of going about it. So what do I mean by the fact that I do see their point? We now live in a globalist world, and news is being presented at a global level. Like, most people are aware what's happening in Russia right now. Most people are aware what's happening in France right now. And you can actually get involved. You can post a video of it on Facebook. You can you can share things. And you can create more traction behind a national movement. You can create global traction behind the national movement. And you can inflate the numbers of issues that happen in another country that you don't even live in. Right? Now, most people are aware with what happens in the United States. Most people aren't blind and that dumb. Like, they notice the main issues that the media is doing right now in the US. So what is happening is you have certain people taking footage of police officers out of context, and then the media has their own opinion and their own interpretation and their own reality of what transpired in the video. And this causes people to get outraged. This causes people to go on the streets. It causes civil unrest. It causes all of these things. Only so that a couple of weeks later, you're presented with the rest of the context. And people were like, well, if I knew this from the beginning, I wouldn't have been outraged. I think like an example would be the hands up, don't shoot thing, which apparently was being claimed in the beginning and it upset a lot of people. But then as more evidence comes up and you get the context, it's like, well, that was never mentioned. There's plenty of other examples that I'm not going to go into right now, but you get the gist of it, right? So someone films a police officer doing something but removes the context on why that has been done, and it enrages the public, and now people are up on the streets. And when people are up on the streets, the main issue is that they destroy your car, they destroy your business, they vandalize the neighborhood, and it's bad for the people living in that neighborhood at the end of the day. It causes millions of dollars in damages, which gets taken from the taxpayer. You know, if they have a problem with the police and they would protest at the police station, that would be fine. But like usually what ends up happening is that they protest in your neighborhood, and it's the poor neighborhoods that are being affected. When they go and protest at the CNN, all of a sudden there's cops there. But when they're going protest at a impoverished neighborhood, well, then that's fine. You know, no cop, no police present there. I believe like one Democrat said, we need to allow the protesters a space to destroy. And it's like, well, yeah, but they're not destroying your mom's car. No, they're destroying the neighborhood, causing that unemployment to rise in that neighborhood, causing the insurance prices to skyrocket in that neighborhood. That's the problem. You know, it's like the citizens that are suffering from this shit. And the main issue seems to be happening on social media, especially on Facebook. If you have a video of a police officer doing graphical violence towards someone, right? He's being abusive. Now, you don't know the context or anything, but you do see a police officer being abusive. That is allowed to go on social media. And in fact, it manages to go on the trending page. It's usually everywhere, even though it violates the TOS. Because you're not allowed to show violence or anything like that on social media. It's allowed to go there, right? But then if you show some rioters that are doing public damage and destroying the neighborhood and you put it on social media, all of a sudden that gets suppressed. So it doesn't allow people to have the context. It doesn't allow people to make up their own mind. It doesn't allow people to choose right from wrong. No, it's based on an algorithm, and it's based on terms of service, what the Silicon Valley company wants people to see. And obviously this causes really high levels of unhinged stereotyping of the entire police force, to the point where in America you have people saying, abolish the police. Just so you can understand how underfunded the police are, try ordering food and try calling the cops. See which one gets first at your door. And the reason the police doesn't get faster to your door isn't because they're malintent or something. It's because they're already underfunded, because they already have a lot of work to do. And you see the crime level just skyrocketing in the United States after certain calls and chants like that. Who do you think gets to suffer if there aren't cops? I'm a little curious. Like, who do you think gets to suffer? Is the people in the media at CNN? No, they have police presence. Is the people from the poor neighborhoods. They get to suffer. Because the rich people, they got gated communities. They got security. They have, because this is like another thing. Like, oh, wow, guns are evil. Self-defense, horrible. Yeah, but the rich people don't need to have any of that, because they can just contact a security firm. And you get defense and protection for the rich, while anyone else gets to fend out for themselves, right? So people from Europe get to see this. Like, they understand that this is a problem. It's the mainstream media that are providing videos out of context. When the context appears, they rarely make retraction, because the retraction doesn't give ratings. People don't like to be told that they were wrong. People don't like to know it's like, oh my God, I went out there, I protested, and I rioted, and I whatnot. Turns out I was wrong. People don't like to be told they're wrong. No one likes to admit that they're wrong. So this doesn't get ratings. So it's financially profitable for the mainstream media to air these videos. Social media amplifies this because a lot of the moderators at social media are also activists. Like they also have political leanings, and they also believe what is good and what is bad for society. And most of the moderation, especially at Facebook, seems to be done based on that. So I'm not surprised that the French government takes an issue with this. That they realize that there are activists that are manipulating good-hearted people with well-intention, and they're trying to weaponize the police as a vector for political change. And the people that are suffering, again, are the people from the poor neighborhoods. They're the actual people that have the most to suffer for this. Like, let me tell you something that's incredibly eye-opening if you don't believe what I'm saying. Why do you think that when taking into account the damage from the civil unrest in the United States that has been done to small business owner, why is it that the Biden administration says they're going to prioritize black people first and Latino and all the other minorities? Why is that? Because technically all of the unrest was done because the police officers were racist, right? So they were shooting unarmed black people, and that was what caused riot. Why would black people's stores be destroyed then? If this is legitimately an uprising from within that community, why would they destroy their own stores? Doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense when you realize that this has nothing to do with a racial struggle, but it's more of a class struggle. It's more of the little guy, yet again, suffering the damage as the richer get richer. That's the main problem. But people are taught to think in racial lines now because that doesn't hurt the profits at the people at the Wall Street. You know, racial struggle doesn't hurt their bottom line. Class struggle definitely hurts their bottom line. Like, they don't like when the people are joining together. No. But anyway, right, so the French government understands that this is a problem. They don't want what happened in the United States to happen in their country. So what they're doing is that they're being very reactionary. All right, like they think that the problem will go away just by banning it. And this is what I definitely disagree, because right now, censorship seems to be very simple, very easy, but it's like taking all the dirt in the room and putting it under the rug. At the end of the day, it's still in the room. The correct way to handle this is not by censoring. The correct way to handle this is by providing more information. Like, whenever, let's say you have a video of a police officer abusing or, you know, going out of line, and people get outraged. Well, when there is context, like when you get the other side of the information, it should be the president or the government or the spokesman or someone higher up coming out and addressing the people and shaming the mainstream media, which did not provide the context. That's what you need to do. Because the mainstream media, believe it or not, still operates on credibility. Like, they require credibility. And when they post only half of the information, and then when the other half comes out, they don't talk about it, or they just post it once and then forget about it. No, they should actually then be held to account. The politicians need to drill into the heads of the public that the mainstream media also has a responsibility. They need to be held to account when they're publishing misinformation or only half-truths. Now, by the way, it can happen. You know, like it can happen that you only see half of the video and you get outraged. But when the other information comes out, you need to talk about it. You need to calm people down and like, okay, you know what, we were wrong. And by the way, the mainstream media always jumps the gun. Like, literally always jumps the gun. They don't even wait for more information. And this is because of ratings, right? Because it's like, who gets to present the first information, they make the news. I never try to do something like that. Because if I do it, all of a sudden the terms of service are going to crack down hard on me. When the other part of the information comes out, then it's like, oh my God, V is spreading misinformation. He's trying to misinform people. He's doing it out of malice. He knew, like, and then you get your channel terminated, right? But the mainstream media is never held to the same standards. And that's the problem. Now, it seems that in France, after 3 weeks of protests, people have managed to get what they wanted, and this law is not going to be taken down completely, but they're going to remake it and review it and reform it in a different way. Again, I don't think this is the solution, but I do understand the heart of the problem. You know, unless social media allows for conversations to happen and have like both sides of the issue being presented and allow people to make up their own mind, unless that happens, then the conversation is dangerous because only one side gets to be heard. And when that side is wrong, no one is there to correct them. Let me know what you think, especially if you're from France, and I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.